Greetings, this is Marsha Heinzlin signing on for Refocusing Barbados. We did promise you that we were going to find new activities for you, things to continue our discussion and to engage you as the public. Today I have a very esteemed panel, very excited to be sitting next to these young people to talk a little bit more about our economy. We're doing this activity as a follow-up to the 2 lectures given by the Small Business, within the Small Business Association's week, one delivered by Professor Hilary Beckles on the history of the economics of Barbados, and then of course the other one given by former Prime Minister Owen Arthur on the Caribbean integration issue and how that factors into our economics. I wanted to take the opportunity to get a little more thought on the matters from economist Ryan Strawn. Mr. Strawn, welcome. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. From political scientist Mr. Peter Wickham. Welcome, Peter. Thank you. And from economics student Nikita Griffith. Nikita, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, let's start with you, Nikita, the new kid on the block.
Yes.
As you are hearing and learning about the theories in economics, as you reflect on the lecture that Professor Beckles gave and then Prime Minister Arthur, what do you think we need to do with the Barbadian economy right now? How do we fix it?
Well, I don't know how I would fix it, but my opinion on how we can improve it as a start, what we need to do for sure is have a situation where the government is listening to the people, interacting with the people, a situation where the people understand that they too have a voice. Something that I have been exposed to myself in this Barbadian society, where we come about and grandmother used to vote for D, grandfather used to vote for D, you're automatically expected to vote for D or B. I don't want to sound biased. And that in itself takes away the brains of what we do. We put the information out there, we encourage people to get on board, yet still everyone is going with grandmother, grandfather. That influence needs to be done away with. For sure, we need to interact more with our youth. I find there is a divide, an absolute divide between probably 70s, 80s children and the 16-year-olds. That needs to be done with. They're not bullies, we need to interact with them, find out what they're like, find out what they're into, find out how they can improve our economy, not just in terms of academia, but probably tap into the natural resources that, well, the human resources that the youth have to offer. What are they interested in? They no longer apparently want to go and be the accountants or the economists, etc. They want to plant, they want to deal with carpentry, etc. We can tap into those aspects to build our economy.
All right, now we're talking a lot about this economy, but I wonder sometimes if people really understand what that is. Ryan, when we're talking about the economy and rebalancing the Barbadian economy, exactly what does that mean to the layman?
Well, as far as rebalancing is concerned, it's a complex topic, but certainly for the average guy or lady in the street, rebalancing means simply that we have to kind of do away with what we've grown accustomed to some degree, and ensuring that we're putting things in place that as the younger people who are meant to take the country forward. So if you're talking about rebalancing, we can't rebalance and introduce policy that I suppose is particularly discriminatory towards young people. So if you want to talk about it in the broadest context, rebalancing means essentially that for those persons who are 50 odd and above, that they have to look out for the interests of those that are probably 35 and below, in the sense of rebalancing. So yes, as you said, and that's an issue in economics we refer to as overlapping generations, in that you want to be able to make sure that the next generation is in a better position. So at the most, I suppose, the most simple level, it means then that older people must put things in place so that younger people have a less hard time to move things forward, to make serious progress. So I mean that's almost like a kind of esoteric level, but essentially that's what it comes down to. Ensuring that whatever policy you put in place makes it easier for the people that you expect to do the heavy lifting going forward a little easier. And I think that's well, once we start at that level, we understand that, then we can going to what needs to be rebalanced or not.
No, it's a good point to bring you in, because Professor Beckles in his lecture would have looked at all the reasons why perhaps the field was not set, like Ryan is saying, for our generation. How significant was that historical analysis that Professor Beckles brought to the discussion about the economy?
Yeah, it's reasonable. I mean, I'm comfortable with his analysis of the impact that history has had on where we are. And I'm comfortable about the extent to which it is equally applicable across the board. So it's applicable to politics, it's applicable to the university. I think that essentially politics is but part of our whole society and developmental structure that has not really kept pace. And I do agree that we have been doing things the same way for too long. And we need to change the way that politics functions. The problem that we have with that is it's easy to say, but as a political analyst, I've understood that saying what needs to be done is one thing, but you actually have to have the tools to do it. We need to have people in government and people who are trying to get into government that have a vested interest in changing the way the system works. And what Professor Beckles didn't say, which I understand well, is that there are many people who are on the inside, on both sides of the fence, that benefit tremendously from the system being exactly how it is. Clearly, our society now is at a crossroads, and I heard the Minister of Finance the other day say that a recession is a horrible thing to waste. One can argue that this level of political chaos is also a horrible thing to waste, and one can hope that out of it can come a fundamental commitment that we need to change the way that we do business in terms of our politics. And our politics has to become more responsive. Our politics has to be able to take into consideration the views of people on the ground. And there's an interplay between the politics, the economics, and everything else. And I think that that's why we're seeing now that's crystal clear. A big part of the reason that Barbados' economy is not functioning because we don't have a political buy-in, we don't have confidence, things of that nature, and it is entirely relevant. And I understand this, and I'm hoping that what Professor Beckles has said can help to reinforce in the minds of people that look, you cannot have horse and buggy in the era of planes and rockets. It's just not, that's not functional.
Or central water tanks.
Yeah. Central water tanks.
Now let me just throw right in there then, Peter, this next question. Is it possible to fix the economy of Barbados with the political situation being what it is?
No, and I'm strong on the view that they can. It sounds as though we have resigned ourselves to fate, but I think that that's the reality. There are those who may argue that you can compartmentalize and fix small problems in small areas of the Barbados economy and Barbados society without dealing with the overall politics. But I think that right now, the global management of the society is really where the crisis begins and ends. And I don't think, quite frankly, until we have a set of directors that are vested, are comfortable with what needs to be done, and are pushing to do it, that we're going to have any root and branch reform. I don't think it can come from the people because our system isn't functioning that way. And we've known this for some years. People don't seem to understand the extent to which everything in our society is controlled and driven by government. And even if government does not want to do it themselves, they have to be willing to say, okay, well, let's just open doors and let you do it yourself. Right. And I don't know that we have that option.
Now, Ryan, former Prime Minister Oinafo tried to restart the discussion about Caribbean integration as a part of that rebalancing. Are you supportive that that is one of the things that we have to address?
Well, certainly, as an unapologetic regionalist, I would say 100% yes. We, and I say we know, meaning the Caribbean, right. We've not done a very good job of collaborating and moving things forward in as efficient a manner as we should. And the example of that is, if you look at what's taking place with banks as an example, no. We've invested a lot in breweries across the region, but slowly but surely we've been picked off individually, for what may be a reasonable offer from someone on the outside. But once that capacity is gone, then yes, they will employ Barbadians or whoever else around the place, but the real earning of wealth and rebalancing will be lost. And that's because as a region we have not come to realize that, well, I don't think we understand our worth in the world collectively as a region. So I think that certainly any attempt to rebalance the economy domestically must be in part driven by a real understanding as to what our value is in the context of the Caribbean, and then obviously what that Caribbean pie, so to speak, is in the world. And I think that as long as so-and-so is a foreigner and this and that and you treat this and that, it's foolishness. But I mean, that's sorry. I know I feel very passionate about that because fundamentally, we have always moved around the region. We've supported one another. We've just produced a series of concerts and drives to help out our brothers and sisters in Dominica. And these are the things that we should be doing normally.